Chapter 1, The Text I Wasn't Meant to See. The toothbrush was still humming in his mouth when the tablet buzzed on the counter. Brandon leaned forward, spit, rinsed. The light from the mirrored display glowed in the corner of his eye. He tapped the screen without thinking. And that's when he saw it. You're sure he doesn't know? He looks paranoid. Lila, that's what makes it work. His fingers froze mid-wipe. He stared at the messages, one blue, one gray, timestamped from an hour ago. The screen dimmed before he touched it again. But he'd seen enough. He blinked twice, trying to reorder reality. This was Lila's tablet. He wasn't even supposed to have access. But last week she'd left it open on their shared network. Said she forgot her password. He hadn't questioned it. But now. He scrolled up instinctively. The thread was short. No name saved for just the letter. But the tone? It was intimate. Casual. Conspiratorial. Like it had been going on for a while. Brandon's heart didn't race. Not yet. That would come later. Right now, everything inside him slowed. He sat on the edge of the bathtub, tablet on his lap, listening to the hum of the ventilation fan as the messages replayed in his mind. He looks paranoid. That's what makes it work. Not as paranoid. Looks. That was a script. A narrative. And he was the lead character, without ever seeing the page. Suddenly, the last few months clicked into place like puzzle pieces flipping over. The therapy sessions she said would help them communicate better, but always ended in stories he didn't remember living. The missed calendar invites. The social distancing from his own family. His sister saying, "I don't know, Brandon. Lila just seems really scared lately." Even their daughter Emma asking him last week, "Daddy, why do you talk to the wall sometimes?" He didn't. But Lila had told her that he did. Brandon stood, placed the tablet down slowly. Then picked it back up. He took screenshots. Then emailed them to himself, twice, once to a personal address, once to a dummy work account only he used. He walked into the bedroom. Lila was asleep. Or pretending to be. Her breathing was too even. The curtains moved slightly in the open window. Brandon stared at her in the dim light. Not angry. Not scared. Just. Still. Whatever this was, it had started long before tonight. But tonight, for the first time, he had proof. And she had no idea he'd seen it. Chapter 2, The First Time She Said I Was Erratic. It started like most things do, soft. Subtle. Coded in concern. I don't know, Brandon, she said, stirring her tea with a slow circle. Sometimes, the way you talk about things. It feels a little intense. They were sitting across from each other at the kitchen table. Emma was at school. The house was quiet. And yet, something about her tone made the walls feel closer. Intense how? He asked, not defensive. Just confused. Lila gave a tight smile. Just. Big reactions. Mood swings. Nothing scary. But it can be hard to follow sometimes. She wasn't looking at him when she said it. She was looking at her spoon. Brandon laughed a little. Okay, well, let me know next time I swing. That had made her laugh too. But it didn't go away. 2 weeks later, they were in therapy. At her suggestion. Brandon didn't mind. He liked the therapist, Dr. Ezra Mandel. Calm guy, probably late 40s. Soft voice. Clipboard energy. He had the kind of measured presence that could make even silence feel productive. A little too neutral at times, but Brandon respected his approach. He wasn't there for warmth. He was there for clarity. It was the third session when Lila brought it up. I think Brandon has trouble recognizing his own emotional impact, she said. He's brilliant, really, but sometimes it feels like he doesn't realize how his tone or intensity affects people. Dr. Mandel had nodded slowly. Scribbled something on his legal pad without looking up. Brandon had stayed quiet. He'd been trained not to interrupt someone in therapy. But something about the way she said it. Like she was reading from notes. Afterward, in the car, he asked, "Did that feel a little rehearsed to you?" Lila smiled. "What, that I brought up your tone?" "No," Brandon said. "The whole thing." She looked out the window. "You're doing that thing again. Trying to reframe the room around your reaction." It was such a clean line, it almost sounded scripted. That night, he made a mental note to bring it up at the next session. He never got the chance. The following week, Lila showed up early and had a private conversation with Dr. Mandel before Brandon arrived. He wasn't told what it was about. And after that, the sessions changed. Questions were more pointed. Do you ever feel out of control of your reactions? Have others told you that your emotions seem erratic? Erratic. There it was. The word she'd planted. Now growing roots. And Brandon, unaware at the time, watered it by trying to defend himself. Chapter 3, The Sleep App Lie. Brandon couldn't remember the last time he had a full night's sleep. It wasn't insomnia. It wasn't stress. It was tension, slow and constant. The kind that didn't jolt him awake, just kept his muscles knotted through the night. Waking up felt like surviving something. He had started tracking his sleep again, out of curiosity. Lila didn't like it. "Are you still using that thing?" she asked one morning, her voice groggy as she leaned against the doorframe. "It's not accurate. You know that, right?" Brandon shrugged. "It gives me a baseline." She didn't argue. But she didn't ask to see the results either. That was the week she told Dr. Mandel he was talking in his sleep. Not murmuring. Not dreaming. Talking. Coherent phrases. Long ones. "I recorded some of it," she said in session. "He says things about people watching him. About the walls listening. It scared me." Brandon's mouth had gone dry. "What?" Dr. Mandel raised a hand. "Let's take this slowly." "No," Brandon said, blinking hard. "Lila, are you saying I'm hallucinating in my sleep?" She gave a small, sad smile. "I'm not saying anything. I recorded it." Dr. Mandel asked if she could play it. She reached for her phone. Fumbled. Then paused. "Oh. I must have deleted it. I had it, though." Brandon turned to Dr. Mandel. "This isn't real. I've been using a sleep tracker. It logs noise, motion, patterns. It hasn't caught anything." Dr. Mandel folded his hands. "Would you be willing to share the sleep data?" Brandon nodded. "Absolutely." But Lila's voice was quiet. "Data can be doctored. Feelings can't." It was a perfect line. So perfect, Brandon remembered it word for word. That night, he uploaded his sleep logs to a private folder. Over the past 90 days, no verbal alerts. No spikes. No motion flags. But he noticed something else. His tracker stopped syncing automatically 2 weeks earlier. Right after Lila updated the router firmware. He never gave her the admin password. He sat back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't just the sleep app. It was the pattern. And it was getting harder to explain away. Chapter 4, Therapy Journal, the version I never saw. Brandon didn't know she'd been sharing journal entries until his sister mentioned it over brunch. "She's so open about everything now," Lexi said, sipping her coffee. "She even reads something she wrote in therapy. About you?" It was heavy. Brandon paused mid-bite. "Wait, she read it to you?" Lexi blinked. "Yeah. Just a page or two." "Why?" He set his fork down slowly. "Because I haven't seen it." That night, he asked Lila casually. "Hey, you mentioned you were journaling for therapy. What kind of stuff are you writing?" She shrugged, not looking up from her laptop. "Just reflections. Mandel says it helps track emotional consistency." "Cool. Could I read a little sometime?" She hesitated. It's kind of private. Brandon nodded. Right. Of course. But that's when he knew. She wasn't just writing for herself. She was building something. 2 weeks later, while Lila was out at a support circle, Brandon opened her Dropbox. She had left it open on the desktop. Inside was a folder labeled Mandela Reflections. Dozens of neatly typed PDFs. Labeled by week. Structured with bullet points and headers. Not raw. Not messy. Just precise. He clicked the first one. Week 1, observation. Brandon's tone escalates quickly in conflict. Example, Friday, he raised his voice when discussing budgeting. I felt myself flinch. I reminded him calmly that fear is not control. Week 2, concern, his detachment is worsening. He stares at walls for long stretches. Doesn't respond to prompts. When I asked about dinner, he said, "Do I exist in this place?" Brandon felt his pulse spike. None of that happened. Or if it did, it didn't happen like that. He clicked through week 3. Then week 4. In every entry, he was distorted, subtle enough to seem believable. But carefully curated to build a pattern. A pattern of instability. And worse, there were timestamps. Therapist notations. She'd been submitting these. Mandel thought he was seeing Brandon through her words. No wonder the questions had started to shift. He closed the laptop slowly. This wasn't journaling. It was fabrication. And if he hadn't seen it for himself, he would have believed it too. Chapter 5, Enter the Shadow, Cal. The first time Brandon met Cal, it was during a backyard dinner Lila threw for her new support circle. She'd been talking about them for weeks, women and men navigating emotionally complex partnerships. Brandon hadn't thought much of it. He assumed it was more group therapy jargon. But Cal stood out. He wasn't like the others, he wasn't raw or wounded. He wasn't fumbling through healing. He was composed. Observing. He introduced himself politely. Cal Mendoza. I help with digital boundaries. Brandon raised an eyebrow. Like tech support? Cal smiled. Like digital hygiene. Firewalls, password protocols. Energy protection. Online overlays that affect emotional wellness. It sounded like Silicon Valley therapy speak. But Brandon shook his hand anyway. Cal's grip was firm. Intentional. Over the next few weeks, Cal appeared more often. He stopped by for check-ins. Stayed late during workshops. Sat at the far edge of the living room during guided breathwork, typing quietly on his laptop. Brandon asked Lila once, "Is he on your healing team or your tech team?" She laughed. Both. He's amazing. He sees patterns I can't. At first, Brandon brushed it off. Until the smart home settings began to shift. His phone stopped syncing with the kitchen display. The front camera showed increased logins, but only one admin account existed. And his private email forwarded to a shared folder he never created. When he confronted Lila, she was calm. "Cal's been helping me set up boundaries," she said. "You always said we should declutter our digital life." Brandon didn't remember saying that. But Cal was already gone. It wasn't until Brandon checked the router log that he saw the real flag. A new MAC address labeled Node 1 had been added to the network 2 days after Cal's first visit. Someone had remote access. Someone was watching the pattern, not from the outside, but from the inside. And Brandon had let him walk right through the door. Chapter 6, The Doorbell Glitch. It was almost midnight when Brandon's phone buzzed with a motion alert from the front door. He had set the camera to notify him anytime someone came or went after 10 p.m. not because he was suspicious, but because he was tired of delivery drivers walking through garden beds. At least, that's what he used to tell himself. But lately, the alerts had become something else. A quiet record of what she wasn't saying. He opened the app. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m. A man in a gray hoodie stepped onto the porch, turned, and said something into the house. The door opened. Lila leaned out, kissed him, fast and low, like muscle memory, and handed him a folded brown paper bag. Then she waved him off and shut the door. The man didn't look toward the camera. But he didn't have to. Brandon knew exactly what he'd seen. And what he hadn't been told. The next morning, he waited. Lila poured coffee. Stretched. Looked rested. "You sleep okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Brandon said. "Quiet night." She smiled and turned toward the fridge. "Oh, did the food ever come?" He froze. "What food? Didn't you order?" "I saw the app open. I figured you were getting tired or something." "No," he said slowly. "I didn't order anything." She shrugged. "Ha. Must have been a glitch. I thought I heard the door around midnight." He nodded. "Probably nothing." He waited until she left for her walk before replaying the footage again. This time, he recorded it on a secure device and uploaded it to the same hidden folder where the sleep data lived. Then he watched it one more time. Frame by frame. The kiss. The bag. The look on her face after she shut the door. It wasn't guilt. It was comfort. She didn't think she was doing anything wrong. Because she already believed the version of him she was building. And he was finally starting to see it, too. Chapter 7, Digital Ghosting. The first thing to disappear was a calendar invite. Brandon had scheduled a quarterly planning session with his team, nothing special, just part of his usual routine. But the alert never came. When he checked, the invite had been deleted. Then another. Then two more. He opened his settings. His permissions were unchanged. His access, intact. But his account had been inactive for 7 days. Which was impossible. He'd been online. He'd been working. He just hadn't been seen. That night, he tried logging into the smart display in the kitchen. "Account error," it said. He tried again. Then again. The screen blinked. Rebooted. Then redirected to Lila's profile. He tapped the admin settings. Access denied. Brandon narrowed his eyes. Lila was the only other person with admin rights. But he had set the original account. It should have defaulted to him. When he confronted her later, she smiled without blinking. "You told me last year I could change the defaults if it got buggy," she said. "Remember?" He didn't. But she said it with such calm certainty. He almost believed her. 2 days later, he received a fraud alert from his bank. Unusual login from a flagged IP. No funds withdrawn, just a triggered alert. Brandon called his rep. Walked through every access point. "It says here you manually approved a secondary device," the rep said. "I didn't." "Well? It's on file. Same day you reset your passcode." "I didn't do that either." That night, Brandon checked his own Face ID settings. His profile was intact. But the log history showed 2 failed unlock attempts from a secondary user. Labeled, User Ghost 2. He stared at it. Someone had tried to get into his system, using his face. Or at least, something close enough to trick the camera. He backed up the logs, encrypted them, and sent them to the same secure folder. Then he locked his office door, even though he'd never done that before. Even though it was just the 2 of them in the house. Because whatever was happening, it was getting smarter. And closer. Chapter 8, The Scripted Breakdown. Brandon didn't know what Lila had said to his sister. But after that dinner, Lexi stopped calling. She didn't answer texts. Didn't return a single voicemail. And when he finally got her on the phone, after 2 full weeks, her tone was clipped. "I just think you need help," she said quietly. He paused. "Where is this coming from?" "I don't want to argue," she said. Lila shared some things. I don't think she meant to, but... Brandon's chest tightened. "Like what?" "Like how you've been acting. And how scared she is." Scared. That word kept finding him. Later that week, Lila hosted a women's circle in their backyard. She said it was a self-expression night. A safe space. Brandon stayed inside, not because she told him to, but because the energy was thick with curated healing. He overheard just enough through the open window to realize what was happening. "I just try to hold the space for him," she was saying, voice soft and tremulous. "But I feel like I'm holding more than my share of the relationship." Someone murmured in support. Another voice added, "You're so brave for staying." Brandon gripped the counter. She was winning the room with silence and suggestion. It all came to a head 2 days later at brunch with his parents. Lila showed up late. No makeup. Puffy eyes. Shoulders hunched like prey. She slid into the booth and immediately started crying. "I'm sorry," she said. I didn't want to say anything, but things at home have been hard." His mother looked shocked. His father put a hand on her shoulder. Brandon reached out. "Lila, what are you talking about?" She turned toward him, eyes full of crafted sorrow. "I know you don't mean to hurt me. But you do." No one spoke. And in that moment, he realized. It didn't matter what he said next. The script had already been written. And the scene was playing out exactly the way she designed it. Chapter 9, The Garden Conversation. It was the kind of Saturday morning that should have been uneventful. Mild weather. The hum of bees around the lavender beds. Brandon trimming hedges while Emma colored on the patio with chalk. He was grateful for the quiet. Until it broke. "Daddy?" He looked up. Emma was sitting cross-legged, pink chalk in her hand, her head tilted. "Yeah, bug? Are we moving after your hearing?" The words hit him sideways. He wiped his hands and crouched beside her. "What hearing?" Emma blinked. "The one Mommy said is in 2 weeks. She told Ms. Jess that after it's done, we might go somewhere warm." Brandon's mind caught fire behind his calm face. He hadn't heard a word about a hearing. No calendar invites. No paperwork. He smiled gently. "Did Mommy say what kind of hearing?" Emma shook her head. "Just that it was for resetting the structure. She said I shouldn't worry, because it's not my job to carry adult weight." Adult weight? Another phrase that didn't belong in a child's mouth. Brandon nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me, Bug." She looked worried. "Did I do something wrong?" He kissed her forehead. "No. You did something brave." That night, he checked the county court calendar. Nothing under his name. Nothing scheduled. But when he searched for Lila's legal rep, the one she'd used for her mother's estate, there it was. A motion filed 5 days ago. Petition to assess capacity, Brandon King. Filed ex parte. Hidden behind procedural jargon. Requesting psychological review, custody reassignment, and emergency guardianship. The hearing was in 9 days. Brandon closed the laptop and sat very still. Now he knew why she needed him to look paranoid. It was never about the marriage. It was about ownership. And now, she was trying to take him off the board. Chapter 10, Hidden Agent, Anna from work. It started with a Slack message. Just a few lines from Anna Rivas, a quiet project coordinator who barely spoke above a whisper during meetings. "Hey. Can we talk? Something weird showed up in procurement." Brandon messaged back, thinking it was a budget request. "What kind of weird?" She responded instantly. "Internal chargebacks tied to your email. But the invoices are going through a side vendor. We've never used them before." Brandon blinked. "Call me," he typed. 10 minutes later, they were on Zoom. Anna looked uncomfortable but direct. "Someone's been submitting micro-consulting invoices under your name, low enough not to trigger flags, but steady. Over 8 weeks." Brandon leaned back. "Where's the money going?" "Offshore routing through a Delaware-registered LLC." He swore under his breath. "And I'm the listed contractor?" Anna nodded. "Digital signature and all. I pulled your metadata trail from one of the docs." She shared her screen. There it was. One of his old work IDs embedded into the PDF properties. He hadn't used that signature in 2 years. How did you even find this? Anna hesitated. I used to do forensic auditing for a startup that got defrauded by their COO. I never really stopped looking for patterns. Brandon exhaled. Have you told anyone else? No. But I saved everything. I knew if I flagged it too early, it might disappear. Now I'm giving it to you. She paused. Brandon. I don't know what's going on in your life. But someone's trying to bury you in paper. Slowly. Quietly. If I hadn't seen it myself. He nodded. You saw it. That's enough. He ended the call, stared at the frozen Zoom screen for a long moment. Then he added Anna's folder to the rest of the evidence. The network was deeper than he thought. But now, he wasn't the only one who saw it. Chapter 11, The Financial Bleed. Brandon hadn't checked his personal accounts in over a week. He'd been so focused on Lila's narrative, on the therapy logs and system breaches, that he hadn't considered she might hit him where it hurt most. But Anna's discovery had shaken something loose. He sat down that morning, opened his banking dashboard, and felt his stomach knot. The main checking account was fine. But 2 secondary accounts, ones he rarely used except for quarterly investments, had dipped. Not drained. Just bled. Little amounts, spaced just right. $800 here. $1,450 there. A $2,600 vendor payment marked Wellness Integration Consultation. He clicked deeper. The withdrawals had started 8 weeks ago. And every single one was approved with his digital signature. He called the bank's security team. Got routed to the fraud division. Looks like legitimate authorization, the rep said. 2-factor validated. Voice ID match. I never made those transfers. Well? Is there a chance someone else in your household could have recorded your voice? Brandon paused. Lila had always liked playing the therapy sessions on speaker, claiming it helped her review emotional tone. He'd thought it was strange, but benign. Now it looked like she'd been building a vocal signature. He asked for the withdrawal IP logs. They came back tied to a VPN routed through a residential node 2 towns over. Too close to be coincidence. That night, Brandon cross-referenced the LLC Anna had found with the vendors listed in his account history. 4 matched. All recently registered. All managed by proxies with no personal bios. And one, Mistral Strategies, LLC, was housed in the same corporate park where Cal had claimed to work. He stared at the screen. This wasn't just deception. This was infrastructure. Someone had built a pipeline under his name. And if Anna hadn't pulled the invoice thread, he never would have seen it. Chapter 12, The Therapist Flip. Brandon didn't leave Dr. Mandel immediately. He tried to salvage the trust. Tried to believe the man he'd sat across from for months hadn't been fully pulled into Lila's orbit. But after the 3rd session in a row where Brandon's concern was reframed as control, he made the call. I'm going to step away from this, he told Dr. Mandel over the phone. Respectfully. It's no longer a neutral space. Dr. Mandel didn't argue. Just thanked him and wished him peace. Which told Brandon everything he needed to know. He didn't tell Lila. Instead, he quietly booked with someone new, Dr. Rachel Yates. Referred by a friend. Trauma certified. Unaffiliated with Lila's circles. Their first session was calm. Unrushed. Brandon didn't bring documents. Didn't show footage. He just told the story. About the text messages. The rewritten journal entries. The sleep app. The voice notes. Anna. Cal. Emma. Rachel listened without flinching. At the end, she folded her hands. You've been emotionally manipulated, she said. Brandon didn't respond right away. She continued, the language you've described, the triangulation, the use of therapeutic language as weaponry, it's textbook. But what makes this dangerous isn't just the distortion. It's the coordination. He exhaled slowly. So I'm not crazy. Rachel smiled gently. No, Brandon. You're not crazy. You're under siege. He walked out of her office feeling lighter. Not fixed, but affirmed. She gave him a folder before he left, resource sheets, trauma recovery references, and one more thing. A short report template. If this continues, document everything, she said. Judges trust patterns. Patterns they can see. He nodded. He was already documenting. But now, he had the validation to match the files. And someone who knew exactly what she was looking at. Chapter 13, The Confession. Cal didn't mean to leave. It came from a sync error. Brandon had been backing up old project files from a shared Google Drive account he'd used briefly during one of Lila's retreats. Cal had joined that retreat digitally, set up the portal, coordinated the tech, hosted the conda. They'd used the same cloud workspace for about a week. Then Brandon forgot about it. Until one folder updated on its own. A new file. Labeled only, voicenote_3m.m4a. He clicked play. Cal's voice. Low. Controlled. Tired. Once he's flagged, it's clean. She files. We don't contest it. It collapses under its own weight. A pause. If he pushes back, just mirror it. Let him seem unstable. Keep the energy reflective. Another pause. Then. Lila's good. Better than I thought. I didn't think she could hold the line in front of Emma. Brandon stopped the recording. His throat was tight. His hands steady. He replayed the last line twice. Burned it into memory. Then uploaded the file to his private archive. The sync had been accidental. But the confession wasn't. This was a plan. Scripted. Rehearsed. Executed. And now? Documented. Brandon didn't rage. Didn't panic. He just opened a notepad and wrote one sentence. We don't contest it. Then he underlined it. Because now, they would. And he'd already started preparing for how. Chapter 14, The Legal Draft. It was buried in an autosave folder. Brandon had been combing through cloud backups tied to an old shared laptop, one Lila had used exclusively for grant proposals and community healing workshops. But inside the grant support _22 folder, there was a subfolder labeled simply, Drafts. One document caught his eye, draft_PTC evaluation. Reassignment.docx. He opened it. The header was already formatted for familycourt. It had their full names. Emma's name. A fabricated case number. The body of the document was worse. It read like a closing statement in a custody battle that hadn't even started yet. Due to Brandon's ongoing behavioral irregularities, inability to self-regulate under emotional stress, and increasing detachment from co-parenting responsibilities, it is recommended that physical custody be reassigned for the safety and emotional consistency of the minor child. Brandon froze. The doc's creation date? Nearly 2 months ago. Before the therapy concerns. Before the sleep app lie. Before the breakdown in front of his family. All of it had come after. All of it had been pre-written. He checked the file's metadata. It had been edited 4 times. And one of the editors had used an IP address in the same range as Cal's old co-working space. He printed the document. Photographed it. Filed it. Then sat for a long time, staring at the screen. This wasn't a miscommunication. It wasn't even a lie. It was a campaign. A manufactured legal takedown, cloaked in emotional language and therapeutic credibility. And they'd written the ending before the opening act ever began. Chapter 15, The Hidden Agent Reveals Herself. Anna didn't ask for another meeting. She just showed up. Friday afternoon. Brandon was packing up his laptop when she appeared at his office door, holding a sealed envelope and a tired look. Do you have 10 minutes? She asked. He nodded. Yeah. Come in. She shut the door behind her. I wasn't going to say anything else, she said. I figured I'd given you enough. But I got a phone call yesterday. Brandon raised an eyebrow. From who? A man named Kellen. Said he was with Family Systems Mediation. Wanted to know if I could verify some character notes for you. Brandon's stomach turned. I've never heard of them. She handed him the envelope. Inside, a hard copy of the character survey, pre-filled with loaded questions. Has the subject ever exhibited obsessive tendencies or paranoid behavior? Has the subject made you feel unsafe, unreasonably monitored, or emotionally disregarded? Would you describe the subject as emotionally consistent, unpredictable, or controlling? At the top. Requested by Lila King. Brandon looked up. They're building a third-party profile. Anna nodded. That's when I decided I'm not staying quiet. She opened her messenger bag and pulled out a file folder, thick, tabbed, chronological. I've documented everything. Every fake invoice. Every suspicious access. The metadata. IP logs. PDF authorship. She hesitated for the first time. And I recognized someone. Brandon narrowed his eyes. Recognized? Anna nodded. One of the logins. Cal. He worked under a different name at an old contractor firm we investigated, data integrity abuse case. Same IP block. Same aliases. He was quietly blacklisted in 2019 but re-emerged under new certifications. She opened a screenshot on her phone, login history, credential tags, and an internal Slack post from the old investigation. Cal's face. Different name. Same eyes. I didn't make the connection until I saw your metadata trail, Anna said. But once I did, I backtracked everything. Brandon stared at the folder. You kept all this? I used to testify forensics in contractor embezzlement cases, she said. It's muscle memory. She set the folder down and paused. I don't know what she's planning. But whatever it is, it's not just about custody. It's about control. And if you want to fight it, you're going to need more than your word. Brandon reached for the folder. His voice was quiet. I don't want to fight it. Anna tilted her head. I want to end it. Chapter 16, the one text she forgot to delete. Brandon hadn't planned to check the old phone. It was a cracked, half-charged device Lila had tossed into a desk drawer months ago after switching carriers. She called it deadweight. But while searching for a misplaced flash drive, he found it. Screen still intact. Plugged it in out of curiosity. The background loaded. Notifications buzzed. And then, one text thread caught his eye. Not labeled M. Just a string of numbers. No contact name. No emoji. No personalization. But one message, buried mid-thread, was highlighted in blue. After he's out, we'll transfer the account. You just have to look clean. Brandon froze. The timestamp matched the same week Emma had mentioned moving after the hearing. He scrolled up. Earlier messages hinted at strategy. Tone. Pacing. Mirroring language. Deliberate escalation. He's still using the tracker. Make sure Cal flags the secondary folder. It'll look planted otherwise. The level of coordination chilled him. This wasn't just two people scheming. This was structured manipulation. Scripted, scheduled, and disguised as therapy. He downloaded the thread. Backed it up. Cross-referenced the number. Same ghost line. Same secure host network. M. The real name was still buried behind a proxy. But it didn't matter anymore. The words were enough. Because that message, accidentally saved to the old phone's cloud cache, was the one piece they hadn't wiped. The one text she forgot to delete. And now? It was going to burn the whole thing down. Chapter 17, The Emergency Hearing. Brandon didn't walk into the courthouse alone. He never would have, not today. Anna was waiting at the entrance, clutching two case folders and wearing her usual no-nonsense calm. Reed Harmon, his new attorney, former prosecutor, built like he kept secrets for a living, stood beside her. Brandon nodded at them both. His jaw was tight. His posture steady. Inside, The atmosphere was subdued, but charged. A storm just beneath the surface. Lila was already seated at the petitioner's table. She wore light gray, strategically disheveled just enough to suggest strain. Her lawyer, Deborah Klein, looked freshly briefed but over-rehearsed. Brandon clocked a second unfamiliar woman seated behind Lila, another one of the emotional care specialists she liked to mention in vague terms. Cal was not in the room. But Brandon knew better than to assume he was far. That's why 2 private security contractors were already positioned near the door, former federal, hired discreetly the week before. One was on a rotation with Emma's school commute. Brandon hadn't told Lila. But he'd told the court. And Reed had included it in the sealed packet. Precautionary. Protective. Because Lila didn't act out when she felt cornered. She acted through others. Judge Stillman entered briskly and took the bench. This hearing has been convened under emergency motion to assess allegations of misconduct, misrepresentation, and potential abuse of the legal process regarding the custody of Emma King. Both parties have submitted documentation. Today we will determine whether sufficient evidence exists to modify or suspend current proceedings and protections. He adjusted his glasses. Ms. Klein, please summarize your client's position and the supporting evidence. Deborah stood and adjusted her papers. Your Honor, the petitioner has experienced a pattern of emotional unpredictability and destabilizing behavior from Mr. King over the past several months. This includes intense mood swings, nighttime paranoia, and increasingly erratic behavior witnessed by both professionals and close family. She handed up a folder. We are submitting as evidence, therapist session summaries from Dr. Mandel, personal journal reflections from the petitioner, audio notations of sleep disturbances, and an affidavit from a third-party mediator at Family Systems. These materials document a clear emotional pattern consistent with psychological distress. She paused for effect. Lila dabbed beneath her eye. Then Deborah handed over a folder labeled Parental Risk Indicators, Phase 2. Inside were edited transcripts, partial journal entries, a glowing evaluation from Family Systems Mediation. All framed through Lila's constructed lens. The judge flipped through it. Nodded once. Then turned to Reed. Mr. Harmon? Reed rose. Calm. Unrushed. We were hoping they would lead with that, Your Honor. He stepped forward, his voice clear and conversational, like he wasn't trying to prove anything. Just walk someone through a story they needed to understand. For weeks, Mr. King has been portrayed as unstable, paranoid, and emotionally unreliable. The materials you've just reviewed were written with that intent. But behind that curated narrative is a well-organized effort to manufacture instability where none existed. He turned and gestured to Anna. Let's start with the financials. Ms. Rivas, if you would. Anna stepped forward, laid out the folder, and began unpacking the invoice trail. Reed continued, narrating as the documents were displayed. These were submitted under Mr. King's credentials, contracts he never authorized, digital signatures cloned using archived ID keys. All routed through shell LLCs connected to a known associate of the petitioner. This wasn't sloppy. It was engineered. He shifted gears. Next, we have the sleep data logs, cross-referenced with audio surveillance. These were dismissed by the petitioner as unreliable. But we have forensic verification that no such sleep disturbances ever occurred. And the timestamps show something else, her devices were syncing while she claimed to be asleep. The judge's brow twitched. Then there's the voice memo, Reed said. Your Honor, this recording was recovered from a cloud platform used by an associate of the petitioner. We believe this was not meant for public consumption. He played the file. Once he's flagged, it's clean. She files. We don't contest it. It collapses under its own weight. The courtroom held its breath. Reed let it hang. Then approached with the final exhibit. The last piece, Your Honor, was recovered from a mirrored backup on the petitioner's former device. No chain of custody issues. No third-party edits. Her words, from her system. He played the second clip. After he's out, we'll transfer the account. You just have to look clean. Lila didn't move. Her lawyer stood. Your Honor, We object to chain of custody. Reed didn't flinch. The file originated from her device. Metadata confirmed. Mirrored backup uploaded before any legal proceedings began. We've prepared full copies for both court and federal authorities, if needed. Judge Stillman raised a hand. That won't be necessary. Yet. He turned to Lila. Do you have any response? Lila looked down. Her pen trembled slightly in her hand. No, Your Honor. The judge leaned back. Court will recess for 1 hour while I review all submitted materials. The gavel struck once. Brandon didn't move. But inside, something uncoiled. Not relief. Not revenge. Just the weight of being seen. Chapter 18, The Friend Who Testifies. They reconvened just after noon. Judge Stillman returned with a pen in one hand and a highlighter in the other. His expression unreadable. His notes thick. I've reviewed the submitted materials, he said. Some raise serious concerns about intent, coordination, and credibility. But before I proceed, the court has granted a third-party witness permission to speak. A request filed under seal. The individual is present today and prepared to testify. There was a quiet shifting of chairs. Then someone stood from the gallery. Brandon's breath caught. It was Laura Mendez. One of Lila's oldest friends. They'd met in a trauma support circle, attended weekly mindfulness groups together, and hosted 3 women's energy dinners in the last year. She had hugged Brandon at Emma's birthday party just months earlier. Now she stepped toward the witness stand, eyes steady. Lila froze. Her lawyer leaned over, whispering sharply. Lila didn't react. Judge Stillman nodded to the clerk. Please swear in the witness. Laura raised her right hand. After the oath, she turned toward the judge. I want to state clearly that I'm here voluntarily. And that I tried to speak to Lila privately before this. Stillman nodded. Go ahead. Laura looked at Brandon, then back down at her hands. I didn't know what she was planning, not fully. But she told us. Things. That he was unraveling. That he'd been screaming in his sleep. That he was tracking her phone. That he'd lost control of the story. She exhaled. I didn't think to question it. We trusted her. I trusted her. Reed didn't interrupt. He let the words settle. Laura's voice trembled, but she didn't stop. But a few weeks ago, I saw her texting during one of our dinners. She meant to send a message to Cal, but she sent it to me. She pulled out her phone. I saved it. She handed the phone to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge. Stillman read aloud. Still need to soften Laura. She's loyal but naive. Shouldn't take much. The courtroom stayed frozen. Laura blinked fast. I realized then I wasn't part of her circle. I was part of her cover. She looked straight at Lila. I believed you. But you lied to all of us. And you tried to destroy someone who didn't deserve it. Judge Stillman leaned forward. Anything else, Ms. Mendez? Laura shook her head. No, Your Honor. She stepped down. Lila still hadn't moved. Chapter 19, The Public Crack. It started the next morning. An anonymous tip to the school board. A flagged report from a local parenting forum. A shared clip on a private Facebook group. At first, it was just a few whispers. But by noon, Brandon's inbox was filling up. Just wanted to say. I'm sorry I believed her. I had no idea what you were going through. If there's anything we can do for Emma. The tide was turning. Lila's public account went dark by 2 p.m. Her Instagram, once curated with inspirational quotes and minimalist interiors, disappeared. Her LinkedIn profile scrubbed. But it was the group chat leaks that did the most damage. Screenshots of messages between Lila and Cal started circulating, phrases like the soft threat approach, and credibility by attrition. Someone had forwarded them to a podcast host. By evening, a clip from that episode was trending. She wasn't just building a case, she was building a brand of victimhood. And she was monetizing it. 2 days later, the nonprofit Lila co-founded released a statement. Effective immediately, Lila King has stepped down from her role. We are conducting an internal review of all organizational communications and partnerships. A wave of silence followed. Then came the backlash. A blog post dissected her online strategy, how she'd used carefully chosen language, performative wellness, and curated vulnerability to manipulate perception. And then a video surfaced. A clip Brandon didn't upload. But someone did. A grainy recording, Lila berating Emma in the driveway. "You're making me look bad. Do you want people to think I'm a failure?" The post was titled, "The Mask Slips." It had over 200,000 views in 48 hours. Brandon didn't say anything. He didn't post. He didn't share. He didn't gloat. He just made Emma pancakes. Let her pick the movie. And reminded her, gently, that no matter what people said about her mom, she was allowed to feel anything she needed to feel. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about surviving. And healing would take more than just a judge's decision. Chapter 20, The Final Word. Lila showed up for the ruling. She wore black this time. No tears. No soft posture. Just silence. A well-tailored mask that said nothing, and revealed everything. Cal wasn't with her. He couldn't be. 2 days earlier, Brandon received a notice from federal investigators. Subject Cal Mendoza, also known as Caleb Morris, is under formal investigation for multiple counts of digital fraud, identity tampering, and unlawful psychological impersonation in family court cases across 3 states. Anna's documentation had been forwarded discreetly. The memo was now in evidence at the national level. Brandon hadn't expected it to move that fast. But once it did, everything shifted. Judge Stillman entered and began reading without preamble. The court has reviewed all evidence, testimony, and verified metadata. It is clear that an intentional campaign was waged to undermine Mr. King's credibility, manipulate therapeutic processes, and fabricate behavioral instability. He looked down at his notes. Then up at Lila. What's most troubling is the calculated use of therapeutic language and legal mechanisms to exploit trust. This court does not take that lightly. He turned the page. Custody will remain solely with Mr. King. The petitioner is granted monitored visitation, subject to psychological re-evaluation after 6 months. All previous filings submitted by the petitioner are now under audit for potential perjury. Brandon looked straight ahead. Not at Lila. Not at anyone. Just forward. Stillman wasn't done. Additionally, the court will refer the matter of digital fraud, identity abuse, and third-party interference to the Attorney General's office. Lila's hand finally moved. She gripped the table's edge so hard her knuckles went white. Stillman added one final line. And let the record reflect, narrative alone is not truth. And perception, no matter how convincingly performed, is not proof. He signed the ruling. The gavel dropped. Outside, the air felt lighter. Brandon stood on the courthouse steps, one hand resting on Emma's backpack strap. She leaned into his side. Is it over? She asked. He thought about it. It's not over, he said. But it's quieter now. Brandon didn't see her again until 2 weeks after the ruling. She requested one final conversation. No lawyers. No court reporter. Just a cafe in the middle of the city, neutral ground. He agreed, against his better judgment. Maybe for closure. Maybe to hear her say it aloud. She arrived late. Sat across from him. No makeup. No performance. He didn't speak first. She did. I didn't do it because I was afraid, she said. I did it because I was angry. Brandon raised an eyebrow. I couldn't stand the way she looked at you, Lila continued. Emma. Like you were her whole world. Like you hung the moon. And she paused, voice cracking for the first time, I felt erased. I built the brand. The podcast. The center. I made myself the face of healing. But inside our house, I was just background noise. You didn't need me to define you. Emma didn't either. I was always performing. You were just loved. And I hated that. Brandon didn't move. You wanted me gone because she loved me? I wanted to be the one in control again. I wanted to be the voice she listened to. And I thought, if I made you the villain, I could take that back. He nodded slowly. And the money? Lila swallowed. Cal said I deserved more than what the settlement offered. That if we set it up right, I'd walk away with the house, the accounts, and Emma. Brandon stared at her. You didn't just rewrite my life, Lila. You tried to erase it. She didn't argue. She just looked down at her hands. In her sealed statement to the court, she admitted to everything, fabricating journal entries, curating her digital persona, coordinating with Cal to manipulate perception and destroy Brandon's credibility. She lost custody. She lost her professional license. The wellness center dropped her name from the brand within a week. Sponsors vanished. Her podcast was pulled from every platform after ethics complaints flooded in. She wasn't arrested. But the audit is still ongoing. Publicly, she disappeared. Privately, Brandon heard she moved in with her sister 2 states away. And for the first time since she started writing the story, she stopped telling it. As for Cal, he did it because he could. Because he liked rewriting systems, especially ones built on trust. But this time, he left too many breadcrumbs. The investigation moved quickly. 3 prior families came forward once Anna's report reached federal investigators. 2 settlements unraveled. 1 case reopened. Cal, whose real name was Caleb Morris, was indicted 6 weeks after the ruling. Wire fraud. Identity abuse. Unauthorized psychological influence in a court proceeding. He was arrested at a remote co-working property in Oregon, trying to wipe his drives. He won't be consulting again anytime soon. Brandon didn't celebrate. He just spent time with Emma, giving her all the love and attention she needed to feel cared for and safe. And when she asked if they could have ice cream, he said yes. Because small yeses matter more than courtroom victories. And peace doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it just holds the door open.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.